Our next session in the Tarashevchenko Ukrainian Studies Conference at Indiana University 2024 is on language. It is a roundtable 3.2 if you're following in the schedule, and it's called Teaching the Ukrainian Language Worldwide, Achievements and Development Strategies. And it's my honor to hand over the chairpersonship of this roundtable to our colleague Alla Nedashkivska, a colleague who needs no introduction, I am sure. Dr. Nedashkivska is at the University of Alberta. So please, Dr. Nedashkivska, we're really looking forward to this roundtable on teaching the Ukrainian language worldwide. And I should note that the organizer of this panel is the International Association of Teachers of Ukrainian.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for introducing our panel, our roundtable. I'm very happy and honored that we were able to gather representatives from all over the world. And for some, it's morning for me, for some it's evening, and for some even midnight. I believe we have participants from Japan. So welcome. I hope that everyone is here. So I will introduce our speakers briefly. So I was already introduced, and I will switch now to Ukrainian as our association decided we will conduct the session in Ukrainian. Отже, вітання всім.
So, hello everyone, hello all of our participants and listeners. In a nutshell about myself, I'm the professor of the Slavic Applied Language Studies in the Department of Modern Languages and Culturology of University of Alberta. I'm publishing in Slavic Languages Studies discourses, the languages, policies, media, language ideologies, and I'm working on language pedagogy and teaching of Ukrainian as a foreign language. Now, in a nutshell about the participants, Dr. Oleksandra Wallo, the assistant professor of the Department of Slavic, Germanic, and Eurasian Studies of University of Kansas, where they have teaching of Ukrainian as a foreign language. She researches the modern Ukrainian literature, theater, and also teaching of Ukrainian as foreign language. Dr. Wallo is the author of the open educational online textbook, Dobra Forma. Our second participant is Oleksandra Antoniv, my colleague from Lviv. She is the senior teacher of the Department of Ukrainian Applied Language Studies of the Ivano-Franko National University of Lviv. She is the examiner of the National Commission of the Standards of the State Language. She's an author of more than 60 articles on Ukrainian linguodidactics and the history of language. She's the co-author of 4 textbooks of Ukrainian language and other publications. From the UK, we have Andrii Smytsniuk, senior teacher of the Slavic department of Cambridge University. He is teaching Ukrainian, and he's also dealing with the development of the curriculum. He used to be a stipendiate of Fulbright program. He was teaching in Pennsylvania University, and he was the member of the support team of reforms at the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine. From Japan, we have 2 representatives, that is Ihor Datsenko, who graduated from the, Ukrainian language department. He is the candidate of philological sciences and the doctor of the Institute of History of Eastern Europe of Vienna University. He is the PhD on history and the researcher of Japanese language. In Japan, he teaches Ukrainian. And Yulia Dyapko is his colleague, who is also the teacher of Ukrainian language. But that's it. I don't know anything more about her. So maybe she'll say a couple of words about herself. And from Germany, we have Olesa Lazarenko. Dr. Lazarenko is dealing with Polish and Ukrainian languages. She was studying in Kyiv National University and in Warsaw University. She was working for a long time in the Language Studies University named after Potebnya, and she was the teacher of Ukrainian language, and she's still teaching it in the European University Viadrina in Frankfurt. which is the co-organizer of the lectorium, the science, all from the first hands, and the co-author of the map of Ukrainian places in Berlin. Her interests are interlanguage context, sociolinguistics, the methodology of the teaching of Ukrainian as the foreign language, and the history of Ukrainian diaspora. So, hello to all of you. I do hope that all of our speakers are present, and I think let us delve deeper into our issues. We had two questions which we asked you to answer about, and I will start with the first one. The first question is the following: how did the situation with teaching and studying of Ukrainian as a foreign language change in your world, especially after the beginning of the war? I mean, after 2014. This is our first question, and I would ask the reporters, the speakers, please try have about 4 or 5 minutes per each context and speech. So let us start with Dr. Wallo, please. Thank you so much. Hello, dear colleagues. It is very nice to be the part of this round table. I have several slides which I'd like to show, answering this first question, in fact. So let me share them first. Do you see them? Yes. So I started teaching Ukrainian language as a foreign language in the United States in 2003. And I'm doing that on a permanent basis since 2006 in different universities of the United States. During these early days, the beginning of 2000s, Ukrainian language was really marginalized in the Slavic studies. The Slavic programs, at least in the United States, were mostly taught in Russian, in Polish maybe, and Serbian and Croatian was the same. So the courses in these 4 languages had more students. Ukrainian was taught maybe in 8 or 10 programs of universities, in curricula, and in several in Canada. And the students only were several ones. But the state of affairs really changed. It started to change since 2014. First, it was rather gradual and slowly, but I would say that since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russia, the situation is really quickly changing. I would like to show a bit of statistical data, how it changes. So, annually, the American organization SRAS, which is mostly organizing programs, curricula, studies of Slavic and Eurasian languages abroad. It conducts the survey among Slavistic programs in the North American universities, how many students they have at different levels of language courses. First, they started with Russian only, but since 2019, they also started to add the statistical data about Ukrainian language. And here you can see the information for the last 3 years, which shows the changes in the number of students studying Ukrainian in North American universities, not only USA, but Canada as well. So we can see that in 2021, among the programs which gave responses, they were 12. Of course, they are not all of the programs which existed then, but they were the most active ones. The Ukrainian language in the US and in Canada at the university level was studied by 70 students at all of the levels. And again, it's not the exhaustive statistical data, but among the programs which responded to this survey, but it's rather representative as well.
Вже 19 програм.
So already 19 programs responded. Some of them were recently founded, so the number increased, and there were around 135 students. Surely that's not the complete picture, but that is very representative. Then we can see another increase in 2023. There was a significant increase, and already in 29 programs responded, 6 absolutely new programs that were established just over a year since the start of the full-scale invasion. And there were already around 300, 310 students, something like that. So you might think of a significant increase, but in fact, those are small numbers, surely. Even though those programs who responded to a questionnaire in 2022 and 2023, the increase in number of students was 78%. So that is very considerable. But should we compare this with the Russian language? In 2023, 171 program in US and Canada said that they're studying Russian, and the total numbers was around 7,800 students. That's at all levels. So should we compare 7,800 and 310? That's, well, the difference is considerable. Now, should we compare that with Polish language? In 2023, there were 34 programs in US and Canada who responded to a questionnaire, and their total number of students was around 500. So Ukrainian language is currently kind of on its way, and hopefully will be even more popular than Polish language in terms of the interest among the students. But still, there's a lot more work to do. And by the way, on this slide, there's a list of universities that surely I know that Ukrainian was taught in those universities in 2023. Many of those universities have a mature programs for studying Ukrainian. I would like to briefly review three changes, as we can see. Since there is more demand for Ukrainian, there's new positions for teachers of Ukrainian language. Since March 2023, I've seen three different positions in US universities. There's more of them. That's not the complete information. And the students are changing, those who are studying Ukrainian as a foreign language, because we had many students, coming from Ukraine originally. Like now we have a lot of professionals of middle and older age. These are adults who are not studying university, but searching for university programs to study language. And there's many students without Ukrainian origin. US and Canadians interested in learning language. And the demand is growing for intensive summer and winter courses, or during some spring vacations, and for higher levels of Ukrainian as a foreign language. So the demand is increasing. There's more and more work, which is great. And it is very unfortunate that we have to face a war like that in order to see this happening. I thank Dr. Wallo for this. Now, Oleksandra Antoniv, please. Greetings, dear colleagues. Now, just a second. Let me share my presentation, which unfortunately I believe was not provided to the interpreters. Okay. I would like to start my briefing with the following. The organizers have mentioned the first question, and it was mentioned particularly after the beginning of the war and after 2014, and that was absolutely the right way to do so, because it was after the Revolution of Dignitary and after the war has started in 2014, we can see the increase in the in the number of interested students. Students interested in learning Ukrainian language. And this is something that we can see based on the universities offering such services, as well as based on the number of students coming for the training or education. At the same time, the situation with the interested in Ukraine has resulted in a situation that there's more focus being addressed to the standardization of learning Ukrainian as a foreign language. You know, there's a national commission on the standards of a national language, and it offered the certificational exam for Ukrainian at a level of B1. So this is someone for someone who wants to apply for Ukrainian citizenship. Now, the foreign students in Lviv University can pass the certification exams to get all levels. So at a state level, we only have the exam for B1 level. So in 2022, and its full-scale invasion surely had a very negative impact on the teachers and on the students. We started online teaching like 100%. On one hand, we were ready for this because the COVID-19 pandemic has already prepared the professors and students for that. But with the start of the full-scale war, we've seen some of the aspects that online, well, not always the students are able to join the online classes for different reasons. It could be technical reasons, lack of electricity, or for safety reasons. So there was a need for materials that the students could be mastering themselves without the assistance of the professor. And that was very difficult, particularly at some of the departments of the university, and our colleagues had to do some voiceovers of the presentations, so the students could be working with those presentations, with those lectures when they had chance to access the internet. Then the challenges for the universities in Ukraine, there's a significant reduction in the foreign students, and that resulted in the reduction of positions in universities. So we've managed to kind of balance the situation in university, because many professors went abroad, and our department is dealing not only with teaching Ukrainian as a foreign language, but other subjects for Ukrainian students. So that helps. And also, we can say there's new categories of foreign students coming in, and they're actively applying for educational services. We're talking about data analysts, journalists going to the occupied regions or newly deoccupied regions. For example, last year I was having classes with Alla. She's one of the first foreign journalists to visit Kherson after the deoccupation. And surely their impressions are priceless, because they show the true situation to our foreign partners. The medics as well, and they require an integration into this process, because they are doing the surgical operations, they're assisting our doctors in the hospitals. And surely these are significant challenges for the teachers of Ukrainian. That's terminology, that's very intensive courses, the ability to kind of rapidly requalify to ask for consults from the colleagues, the medical workers. Then work with the foreign legionnaires or foreign soldiers. I've never had a chance to work on that matter before the war. So I have a very sensitive experience of work with the wounded legionnaires undergoing rehabilitation, and they require some language support, both in terms of, supporting themselves on different matters in hospitals. Besides, they want to learn military terminology, lexics. Then there's volunteers and surely the teachers. So these are different categories of foreign citizens who required learning Ukrainian as a foreign language. As for the teachers, we know that many of our children left abroad, and they are facing a different environment. They're And surely the foreign educational system is not always ready to respond quickly. There's a good experience of our colleagues from the Warsaw University. I mean, in the very first month of the war, they've created kind of a dictionary for the Polish professors and teachers to help them to support the children with the integration into the Polish environment. And we offered a number of courses for Polish teachers so they could be communicating at some basic level with their students from Ukraine. And two more aspects that I wanted to raise today. It's that we can see significant demand in training young experts in teaching Ukrainian as a foreign language. Our university started this occupational specialty like Ukrainian as a foreign language. In 2021, we'll have the next year the graduation of our first bachelor's. And second thing is that with the start of the war, a lot of our professors went abroad, and they need to find, their own kind of possibility. And in many cases, they're offered to teach Ukrainian as a foreign language. And in some cases, people are not ready for this. So a couple of experience in 2022. I mean, in 2021, we've started, but months before the start of the full-scale war, we've completed the courses for the teachers in diaspora, where the teachers from 8 countries were participating. And this course was based at the request of the European Congress of Ukrainians, and they had an initiative, meaning the professors, the teachers, they require the support like that, as they're feeling the lack of knowledges like that. And the other positive experience is that the Kyiv National University has suggested courses, has offered courses for everyone, for all volunteers in Ukraine and abroad. That's a course of 5 credits. That's advanced training in Ukrainian. So that's just a brief overview of the main trends that we had. Thank you. Thank you, Lesya. And now, Andrii Smytsniuk, so please, you have the floor. Good afternoon. Hopefully you can hear me. Well, I'm not going to use any slides, but I would like to express words of gratitude to all the speakers and the organizers, as well as the previous speakers from the previous panel. It was interesting to listen to you, at least what I've managed to hear. I have to apologize that I don't have a greatest understanding of the changes that took place in 2014, because in 2017 I graduated the MA course from the University of Franko. So it's great to have this speech together with my own professor. So if we take Cambridge University, well, the teaching of Ukrainian began in 2008, even though it was limited, but the permanent Ukrainian studies program was established in 2010. And since the start of the war in 2014, there's been many positive changes in teaching of the Ukrainian language as a foreign language. And many universities, they hired permanent Ukrainian language teachers, and Cambridge University also did this. And in 2019, they created a permanent position of Ukrainian language teacher that I managed to take. All previous teaching had been done either on a part-time basis, someone came from London, or by doctoral students from other specialties. Now we have 2 types of courses, meaning courses for different levels of language. That's for students of different specialities. And we have specialized courses for language students, or students of language courses, those who study philology or those who study Russian language. Now, from the beginning of the large-scale invasion, we finally have a chance to have a specialization in Ukrainian, meaning the Ukrainian is taught not on a facultative basis, but in fact like a permanent course. Now, and there's also specialized courses in of high-level Ukrainian. Unfortunately, I have a limited access to the data on the course attendances before 2019, but I can tell you that starting from 2008 until 2019, the number of students, it has increased by 1.5 times. That's from 13 to 22 people, but in a period of 2019 to 2022, the number of students doubled. So now there's 65 students in 2022, 2023, and 63 in the next year. Now, it's interesting that the increase of students, it wasn't happening among those students who learn foreign language as a philologist. The increase in the number of students is due to students coming from other specialities, political studies experts and anthropologists. I mean, political experts, those who kind of study the political situation, and anthropologists, they studied the refugees. And according to different estimates, up to 200,000 Ukrainians came to London. They came to UK, and a lot of mini textbooks on Ukrainian have been published, but most are focused on how would you need to talk to refugees, what are the cultural differences between the Ukrainians and Britons, but also there's this significant number of people coming to the UK as a result of full-scale invasion. They promote a lot of researches on anthropology and political sciences as well. And outside of our university, there's also a lot of open new programs on Ukrainian. The Sheffield University, York University, they have created their own curriculum. The Birmingham University have created a summer school in cooperation with Franko National University. Oxford University had a short-time program on Ukrainian. So on the overall, there's a significant increase in the students, particularly after 2022. Not as it was after 2014, but still, the students are coming from courses not specialized in language studies, but those who do some specialized researches on political studies or anthropology, as I already mentioned. Thank you. I thank Andrew. Now I will have more on the situation in Japan from Ihor, Datsenko, and Yulia Dzepko. So please. Good evening. I will take the first floor. So my name is Yulia Dzepko. I'm a candidate of science in philology. I was also a graduate of Franko University, and since 2016, I'm an associate professor in the University of Japan. I will try to respond the first question, and Ihor will take the second question. So, how the situation with teaching and learning Ukrainian as a foreign language changed in our world? Well, in fact, the history of Ukrainian studies in Japan is not that long as it was in other universities. It all started with the independence of Ukraine, when there's an association of Ukrainian studies experts, when the first textbooks on the Ukrainian language appear. But as it was in many other Western countries, the Ukrainian studies in Japan, well, it's not that popular, I would say, studios. And before 2014, they were not really developing. And one of my Japanese colleagues said that if compared to Russian studios, as of 24, the ratio between the works of Ukrainians and Russians was 1 to 80.
практикою займалася дуже-дуже мала кількість людей. Я
And
зараз
not
опишу...
that many people were involved in the Ukrainian studies. Let me describe in a nutshell the main centers of Ukrainian studies and the organizations which are dealing with the studies. First of all, the Association of Ukrainian Studies of Japan, which was founded in 1994 by the professor of the University of Tokyo, historian Kazuo Nakai, who was interested in the 80s by the history of Ukrainian nationalism, and he is the author of several works about that. Today, the Professor Okaba Yoshihiko is the president of the association. Mr. Okaba is famous because he is researching the issue of Ukrainian-Japanese relations, especially in the first half of the 20th century. The association has 2 report meetings annually, and it is not only promoting Ukrainian studies in Japan, it also has rather interesting activities. In particular, in 2019, this association has created the expert group on the spelling of Ukrainian place names or geographical names in katakana. That is the same Kyiv, not Kiev, but in Japanese. So the recommendations which the association provided on the writing and spelling of Ukrainian geographic names was used in 2022 by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the word Kyiv in Ukrainian transliteration, which is recommended by the association, in fact was introduced in top 10 most popular words of Japan of 2022. Kyiv was instantly within the year was Ukrainized, the word Kyiv, and it's a rather noticeable achievement of the association. The association includes not only researchers but diplomats and businessmen who are connected with their activities in Ukraine. Since 2020, the association launched an annual award for contributions and promotion of Ukrainian studies in Japan. This year was award was given to the translator of Taras Shevchenko. Now, the collection Three Summers was translated into the Japanese, and the association awarded Professor Fuji. So also this year, the anniversary meeting was taking place on the 3rd of March and was devoted to the 210th anniversary of Taras Shevchenko's birth. It had Japanese literature specialists, Harada Yoshinara. In particular, he is famous with his translations of poetry into Japanese, and he was speaking about mythopoetics of Shevchenko's works. The next one is the Ukrainian studies as the subject, and it's not that nice as it used to be, because till 2022 it was introduced only in 2 universities of Japan: Tokyo University of Foreign Studies and Languages, where the teachers within the faculty of Russian language were teaching Ukrainian, and Kobe Gakuin University. The president of the Association of Ukrainian Studies is a professor of this university. To understand the comparison of the numbers of universities with the number of disciplines with the universities where they teach Ukrainian as a subject, in Japan we have 800 universities. So just thinking about the comparison, it too is almost not noticed. After 2022, the full scale of the war started, and it provokes a huge encouragement and, in fact, popularization of everything what is Ukrainian in Japan. So we have the huge societal demand request for Ukrainian language. Several universities respond to that. University of Tokyo, the most important and famous university in Japan, launches Ukrainian language studies. Kobe University, Nagoya University of Foreign Languages, and Kinjo Gakuin University introduces the subject of Ukrainian language and Ukrainian culture. Then, about the main centers of Ukrainian studies in Japan, let me say a couple of words about that. Because, however, the Ukrainian language course is the new one still, the Ukrainian studies have certain history within the departments of Slavic centers, as it was always done in other universities. So the biggest center of Ukrainian studies still was the Slavic and Eurasian Research Center at Hokkaido University, which previously studied Ukraine and involved Ukrainian scholars from different spheres. But Russo-Ukrainian War and full-scale phase in 2022 led to the situation that they opened the new department of Ukrainian and adjacent regions studies in 2023. So this research center involved, as for me, the most prominent Ukrainian scholars from different spheres, in particular in language studies. Professor Masenko and Professor Gritsenko had the opportunity to take part in this symposium, and also Mykola Repchuk, Serhiy Plokhy, Olesya Khromichuk, famous Ukrainian scholars. Also, we go on with Ukrainian studies within University of Tokyo, Sofia University, Osaka University, and Chukyo University, which is located in Nagoya City. A couple of words also about myself, because as I said, I'm the teacher of the Department of English Language, but the interest of the Japanese people with the war and what is taking place in Ukraine created a request, a demand for the open courses for everybody who would like to see them, not only for the students, anybody could come to us. So the university where I teach for 2 years in a row, I managed to create a course on history and culture of Ukraine with approximately 50 to 60 people annually. So one of the biggest private universities of Japan, Keio University, which is supporting Ukraine a lot. It is also conducting similar courses, and in fact, it's not only about students, but about anyone who would like to understand more about Ukraine and to see what Ukraine is. And a couple of words to conclude, I'd like to say about the works devoted to Ukrainian issues. I understand that maybe this takes the part of the second question, but still, it's important to mention that before 2022, they were not that numerous, the works of encyclopedic publications which would tell about Ukraine. One of the most famous works in Japan was 65 Articles to Know Ukraine, which was published after 2014, when we have finally the request for Ukrainian studies. And this book after 2022 was already reprinted twice, which witnesses about the huge request of the society for the Ukrainian studies. And I wrote the book Ukraine which Japan does not know, Identity Through the Prism of History, which tells about the main historical events which form Ukrainian identity and tell about certain factors, in particular language, religion, and Russo-Ukrainian war, as the main factors for the formation of the current Ukrainian identity. So if I've got several minutes more, I would like to say that Ukrainian studies in Japan are always attached to Ukrainian cultural organizations, which are also introducing the teaching of Ukrainian language. Japan has 5 official organizations founded by Ukrainians, which and their main goal today is not only popularize Ukrainian culture, but also to provide the information about the war and to help the Ukrainian. Well, we have the word evacuated in Japan, that is forced migrants, I mean. And here I need to speak about 3 Sunday schools in Japan, 2 in Tokyo and 1 in Nagoya, and about the Ukrainian church, which is also an important center today, because this is the bilateral process where we are speaking that the Ukrainians are telling something to the Japanese, and we have the opportunity to involve more Japanese people to the understanding of what is really taking place in Ukraine, to make them interested in Ukrainian culture and language. Thank you. Thank you. So now about the context of Germany, please, Olesya Lazarenko. Good day, everyone. Do you hear me? So first, I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to take part in today's roundtable. And maybe I can afford myself a short terminological comment. When Alla was introducing me, she said that this is the European University Viadrina in Frankfurt. I would ask to clarify that this is the Frankfurt on order, auf Oder, because in Germany they have such an unwritten rule. When you say Frankfurt, automatically it means Frankfurt am Main, auf Main. So to distinguish those 2 cities, I would ask to mention Frankfurt auf Oder. This is the name of the river where my Frankfurt is located on. So let me present the history of our university in a nutshell. In fact, it has a very ancient history, but recently the university was celebrating its 25th anniversary, which is connected to the fact that it was restored in 1991 as a Polish-German university. Here we have three departments: law, economics, faculty of cultural studies and social sciences, and also we have a kind of unofficial faculty of language center, Sprachenzentrum, where we have practical learning of foreign languages. So when we speak about the studies of Ukrainian language, we don't have a traditional vision like Slavic department, because in Germany, traditionally, Ukrainian language, maybe before 2014 or 2017, was taught sporadically. And in language centers, it was not present at all. It was not there. I would therefore allow myself to tell you then about the number of students in Viadrina. And if you pay attention to the last lines, you can see that Ukrainians, the number of Ukrainian students, takes the second place in the ranking. First, Poland, because this is the borderline city. Then Ukrainians, because this is the closest German university geographically to Ukraine. And in Germany, they have really a big Turkish community. This is how our website looks like of our Sprachenzentrum. To the left, you can see the languages which we present, and in particular, Ukrainian as well. Since, well, the Lecturers Theatre was founded in 2016, and this is the response to Maidan events and the Revolution of Dignity. There have been presented such levels during these years till 2024, the levels A1, B2. We had additional courses, reading courses for students with knowledge of the Cyrillic alphabet, Polish-Ukrainian translation course, Ukrainian studies, and also we had courses devoted to, and we with Antoniv already visited one program today, which is conducted by Kyiv National University, and today the topic was how to teach writing, the topic of writing. So such topics are really developed in Viadrina as well. Please pay attention to this really nice postcard, because every language in our language center got its own color, I would say. So I got the orange one. And every language which is taught in our language center has the words. I study, for instance, Italian or Polish or German. I study Ukrainian, of course, in the language center of Viadrina. This slide, well, let me tell several sentences about this slide. I will not list all of my author's courses, because I was trying to concentrate not only on the studies of Ukrainian language as the foreign language for our students, but I was also trying to add several elements connected with lingual country studies in particular. Alla, and thank you for that, has mentioned that in the co-authorship with my colleague from Berlin, Oleksandra, I created the maps of the Ukrainian places in Berlin. And that is why we had also for my students the courses, the excursions, sorry. This map is of 2021. This was the year of publication. And now, as the Ukrainian-speaking landscape has changed in Berlin and Frankfurt-on-Oder, we are working on the update. This slide also could be a partial answer to the second question, in fact. Let me emphasize that our university, for a long time, since maybe it has been founded, had the partnership agreements with Ukrainian Catholic University, Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, Karazin University of Kharkiv, and in fact, Ukrainian language was, in fact, was taught to teach the students of Viadrina who would like to go to Erasmus studies to the above-mentioned universities. The list of Ukrainian partners after 2022 has been expanded. In 2018, there was the foundation of the Department of History of Ukraine, headed by Professor Andrii. In 2023, a huge event took place, which was always also the partial answer to the second question. There was the opening of the Center for Ukrainian and Polish Studies. And in 2024, just several days before the beginning of our conference, Viadrina has officially got funding from the organization DAAD for 2.5 million euro for the development of Ukrainian studies. And now, dear colleagues, let me share an incredibly important piece of news, which I think is a revolutionary one in the history of teaching of Ukrainian language in Germany, because Ukrainian language is officially, just several weeks ago, it was accredited and got the certificate for the levels A1, UniCert basis, and B1. And it took place in our university, in our language center. I need to tell you that it's a huge achievement. And now, because of that, what has changed? Answering the question number one, what has changed? Soon we'll have the summer semester starting, where we had the increase of the number of hours for Ukrainian language teaching. And now our students, after certain courses or certain training, after the tests, they will get a certificate which is acknowledged at the international level. Let me emphasize that such certificates are not present at the Slavic studies. We are speaking about the system of language centers, and such event took place for the first time. Down here, I will send out the link to the chat. This is the link to my article, which was recently published in Kyiv. This was the project of the Kyiv Economic University, named after Vadim Hetman. And here I reviewed all the points connected with the teaching of Ukrainian language in Viadrina. Now, in a nutshell, in fact, this is the last slide of mine. This is the answer to the question which was mentioned by Alla in the beginning of our round table. So, let me underline that Frankfurt-am-Oder is a border city that was one of the first to accept Ukrainian asylum seekers from the war. Our, in fact, people who from the same country, and not only Ukrainian students were involved in this work, I mentioned about them at slide 1, but also the city's residents joined the volunteer work. That is why Viadrina, as a university, organized so-called introductory and intensive Ukrainian language courses for all interested parties. So who came to me instantly? I was having these courses because I was the only lecturer as of these times in Brandenburg. Frankfurt-am-Oder belongs to Brandenburg. And in fact, this proposal was given to me. And as it was mentioned here, one of the first who came to me to get to these courses were journalists, scientists who came from Berlin even, and doctors as well. And all of those people were, in fact, were volunteers. And also, the web pages for the Ministry of Education of Brandenburg came to us to translate the information to help our students who, after the 24th of February 2022, came to Germany. An important and incredibly needed was the project which is finalized already and which took place for a long time, for about half a year. It was very intense. After the 24th of February, we were allowed, the mayor's office, the city hall, allowed to translate the Ukrainian birth certificates. On the one hand, it used to be a kind of substantial support of our compatriots to help the children as soon as possible to be registered in the preschool and school education system. And I need to tell you that all of those institutions were told that they can really take the birth certificates translated by our students, which were verified by me. This was done within the city. This is the work of the lecture center of our center with the city. Sorry to interrupt you. You are speaking for more than 10 minutes already. Thank you so much. The last sentence. So we can see the increased interest in learning the Ukrainian language among students who came to Viadrina on the Erasmus exchange program. So they have a unique opportunity for the students from Italy, Argentina, Colombia, other countries of the world, and they are the students, I mean, who are coming to us are from 110 countries. They have a unique opportunity to study Ukrainian as well. Thank you.
Дякую. Дякую.
Okay, thank you. It was extremely interesting to learn about situations in different contexts of the world. So we have a second question, but please make sure comply within the time slots available. That is 45 minutes. Otherwise, we won't have a chance to have a later on discussion. So I will raise this kind of symbol of applause when you will need to finalize your statements, isn't so let's do that all in a fairly kind of non-linear way in the other direction. So the question, what do you think are the main tasks faced by the community of the teachers of Ukrainian as a foreign language to make it more popular in the world? So, Ihor, this time you'll be the first. Ihor Datsenko, please. So, good evening, dear colleagues. It's fairly late in Japan now, so let me try and continue my presentation. The presentation was originally delivered by my colleague. So some of the challenges, well, one of the largest challenges is the textbook on Ukrainian language would comply with the needs of academic studying of Ukrainian at universities. Before 2022, there was a publication of several textbooks. There was a textbook by Nakai Kadzu, Intro to Ukrainian Language. Then Hidehiko on Ukrainian language. There was two kind of editions, and there were also a number of textbooks on Ukrainian grammar for the beginners. I was editing and doing the voiceover for those textbooks, so I helped a lot in publication of this textbook. But back in 2022, we had a new textbook by Oksana Piskunova. In fact, in 2023, that's Ukrainian from Zero. And I would like to try this textbook with our students. I teach Ukrainian in several kind of universities, but this textbook, it's not kind of complementing anything, but because all the textbooks are based on the beginning level, and so we are practicing different grammar rules. There's examples from Ukrainian literature, primarily literature of 19th century. And there's another challenge. There's no textbook for middle level or for higher level of language competence. And now, because of there's several thousands of Ukrainian refugees, so we also publish different dictionaries and glossaries in Japanese and Ukrainian. Then there is a lack of complete Japanese to Ukrainian, Ukrainian to Japanese dictionary. As you can see, there were a number of attempts to produce a dictionary, but I think the largest dictionary is the dictionary by Bondarenko-Prienko. it's only for 15,000 words, but there's no academic dictionary. So I think a group of qualified Ukrainian language experts and Japanese language experts have to deal with that. Then there's another challenge. The textbooks for Ukrainian cultural studies and area studies, because currently the textbook, they don't contain this information. Last year, there was a publication of the history of Ukraine by Japanese authors, and over the past years, there was around 40 books dedicated to the war of Russia against Ukraine. There's translations of Ukrainian texts, but there's not too many scientific popular books for an average Japanese readers. And the last challenge that I would like to mention is the lack of department of Ukrainian language studies, because we don't have a professional training of Ukrainian experts in Japan. The lectures are done on a more facultative basis in several universities. And current Japanese Ukrainian experts are people coming from Ukraine, like we with Yulia, or experts from other areas. And also, I'd like to mention that as Ukraine is becoming more popular in the world, hopefully the research of different aspects of Ukrainian national identity will become more profound in Japan. And Japan is providing active financial humanitarian support of Ukraine. Well, it has the potential to become one of the strongest center of academic researchers on Ukraine studies in the Asian Pacific region. Thank you, Ihor. Now, Alexandra Antoniv, please. Thank you. I would like to start by saying that it's important for us not to lose this, an increase in the interest of Ukrainian language and culture. But also, the main objective is to make sure Ukraine remains in the focus of attention, not to have a situation when there's a large Russian culture and then all these small cultures that are not really popular among other languages. So, as for what do we need to do that for doing that? That's a rhetoric question. As the development of new high-quality materials, surely, while taking into account the demands and the technological possibilities available, the use of AI on the classes of Ukrainian as foreign language. So we shouldn't be saying that they can't be using the AI, but instead we would suggest the students some opportunities for them to use that in order to kind of advance their level of language. And I once had a kind of challenge to have a course on different areas. The AI allowed to, gain a very significant expertise in different areas. For example, I'm not an expert in investments, but if you can upload the dictionary or you can upload other textbooks, you can see some of the things that the students have access to, and then you can work on that in order to somehow complement it with other materials. Second is the international programs that you may be using as well. We're talking about different programs. I will tell you the experience of under the Erasmus Plus program, and it's called the project STEM for Humanities. It provides for the engagement of experts in developing the STEAM skills and implementing those skills into the educational process. We've just started this project, but I really want that our professors, having taken this course on how to integrate these skills, could be really using that in their own classes of Ukrainian as a foreign language. It happens so that these STEM skills are becoming more kind of knowledgeable, more popular among the new Ukrainian school. And there's a policy which is far more integrated than at the level of universities. The third aspect is to improve the methodology of processing the materials and improve the approaches to developing new teaching materials. Just recently, an interesting experience. Just recently, a colleague from the Ternopil Technical University, Lesa Nazarevich, was sharing her experience of using tandem approaches with a colleague from a US university. So how they've established this cooperation. They were using, well, since the students of the US university, they were using the textbooks by Savchenko. So the colleagues decided on the basis of this university to integrate this tandem approach. But at the same time, every lesson they've amended, they complemented this with mental maps, with internet apps for using lectures. They've used Quizlets, maybe others. Maybe the authors would be, interested in learning the further improvement opportunities or directions for their textbooks. We can also, talk about the improvement of methodology of teaching Ukrainian as a foreign language. There's a problem. It's not a problem, but still in Canada. But it could be a challenge for some of the countries hosting Ukrainian refugees. I mean, how to teach the children who will stay there, who will not return to Ukraine. So how to preserve this Ukrainian identity, how to support this identity through the language, how to spread it. And I think another important aspect is the training experts on testing Ukrainian as a foreign language, because currently the national board has only several people and they're verifying other who passed already some courses. So hopefully we will be able to kind of cover this gap. And if we'll be able to get at least one more project with Erasmus, we'll be able to cover the gaps. But I'm not going to share all of the information now, but I will definitely share the updates if we'll have any positive results. One more thing, in fact, two more things. The specialized textbooks, because we have a textbook for the experts in the field of economy. We have a good amount of textbooks for the medics. We have the textbook on kind of business Ukrainian, but we don't have any textbooks for, I don't know, diplomacy, surgery, for historians, for experts in international relations. So this is the field that is not yet been kind of filled, and we'll be looking forward to any proposals. And after the war, surely we would really like to restore the summer schools, the winter schools. We do have them online, but unfortunately, there's no immersion into the Ukrainian language environment and the practice of our students abroad. So that gives a lot for our students abroad and for the foreign students coming here to Ukraine. And when a lot is taught not only by the professors, but by the young experts as well too. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Now, some of the tasks for us, for the community of the teachers. So, Andrii, please, what's your take on this? Thank you. Hopefully, you can see my presentation. I wanted to split this question like in two parts. One would not be a direct answer to this question, but still it's important. And the other one would be directly kind of as an answer to the question. So the first thing is, what is the tasks of teaching English? What is the function of teaching English as it is? And I think that it's important whenever we are talking about the teaching Ukrainian, it's important to recall the impact, the influence of teaching Ukrainian in the overall context, because teaching Ukrainian and making Ukrainian culture more popular is part of the soft power. It's very hard to measure the soft power. It's hard to measure the effect that it brings. There's a lot of research, as the Edinburgh University made a research ordered by British Council. I can post a link to that, and it measures, it proves the fact that the institutions like British Council, like Goethe Institute, and some others, those who are directly dealing with language training, with making culture and language more popular, now they have a direct impact on the international investments, direct investments. And you can see some of the measurements, like 1% of increase in the number of countries covering those languages, like British Council. So it gives like 0.66% increase in investments. So 1% increase in countries covered goes or provides 0.73% increase in the number of international students. And this research shows different, impacts, the impact of the soft power produced through these institutions on the voting in the General Assembly of the UN, or the number of international students. So my vision is that Ukrainian language and teaching Ukrainian is somehow similar to the activity of these institutions, and it has some sort of an effect on the Ukrainian future. Surely, Ukraine doesn't have like the institutions alike British Council, but the research shows the direct impact of teaching foreign language on the investments, on the number of foreign students, and certain possibilities on the international arena. Now, the second part of the question on the problems and the challenges to a community of Ukrainian teachers, it's kind of maintaining this interest in Ukrainian language. And should you take an example of our university, we're trying to measure, we're trying to ask people what are their major reasons for studying Ukrainian in order to understand what causes this interest. And unfortunately, we've started doing that only over the past couple of years, but we do those surveys regularly, and we give students a chance to answer why they're willing to kind of learn Ukrainian. And you can see some of the results from 2020 till 2024. Kind of the main reason why in our case, people are willing to study Ukrainian, use language as a tool to understand the culture, the politics, to understand what is happening, why is it happening, and learning language as it is sometimes the second cause, but not the major one. And we can see that from the start of the full-scale war, there's an interesting fact. There's more and more people calling the decolonization of their own education as the reason for studying Ukrainian. So at least a third of the students believe that their education were too focused on Russian, so they're willing to kind of balance it by studying something in Ukrainian.
Зменшиться кількість тих, хто міг відвідати
And we
Україну.
can see the decrease of number of those who could go to Ukraine and find friends there, and potentially it will go on as an issue. And now our students cannot just travel to Ukraine, unfortunately. So according to this data and other points, what can I tell you now? That some of the main tasks which I can see is to support this level of interest in Ukrainian language. According to our surveys, we can see that it can be done with the help of some culture. It should be definitely culture at the first place, and the language should be the tool for understanding what is really taking place. And secondly is decolonization of the programs of curricula on Slavic studies, not only in Ukrainian maybe, but still some awareness about Ukraine, which would incentivize the interest in Ukraine and Ukrainian language. And the third issue, which was mentioned above as well, that is getting into the language environment, which under these conditions is really hard to organize. The majority of governments of the world do not recommend Ukraine as the country for travels, including the British one. And that means that we need to search for new opportunities where they could get, to some extent at least, coming into the language community. That's it from me. Thank you, Andrii. Oleksandra, Wallo, please. Thank you. I have only one slide in a nutshell. Some of the main tasks which we have. Just a moment. Let me open it. Let me so mention that some of these tasks have already been mentioned by my colleagues, but for us, the teachers in the US and Canada, it is still relevant to have convincing arguments for students why they should learn Ukrainian as a foreign language and why they should study it as the first Slavic one, not Russian, but Ukrainian. And many students now already understand that themselves. But if we have those ready-made convincing arguments and the resources which we could add, recommending to the students, it would be easier to persuade them that you should start with Ukrainian, if they plan at least some specialization on Slavic languages and literatures. And one of such arguments, which is connected with decolonization, by the way, is that what was mentioned by one of the Japanese diplomats in Kyiv recently, that he studied Ukrainian because he should analyze Ukraine not through Russia, but directly. So this is the new convincing argument for many of our students, which are now under conditions of war, are very relevant. And of course, there are other reasons. Many students now are into Ukraine with our courage, our joyful nature and resilience of Ukrainians. So we may say that recently we had this slogan, Ukrainian language is the language of free people. So it's really the argument for many students, and they tell me that when they are asked why you started studying Ukrainian, because they are compassionate and they are adoring, excited about Ukrainians. And also for our students who are studying different Slavic languages. By the way, I need to say that in the US we have, as of now, only one university where they offer Ukrainian language as specialization. So, in fact, it's not even possible to get specialization on Ukrainian language, literature, and culture at the undergraduate level, that is, bachelor's level. Well, of course, that is also a very important task, to create a situation when at least several US universities could have programs and courses to become a specialist in Ukrainian language, literature, and culture. But we need to create, in fact, demand, and we need to convince our students that there is linguistic sense, scientific sense to start studying Slavic studies with Ukrainian language, because it could be the key, the best, the most efficient key to other Slavic languages. Because knowledge of Ukrainian could help later, and to simplify the studies of Polish, Czech, and other Western European language, including South European languages, Serbian, Croatian, and also Russian, if they still want that. So these arguments, I think, should be used as a nice, convincing, articulated ones, maybe even at some websites with the links to different resources, to the articles and videos where the foreigners are saying something in Ukrainian who have studied Ukrainian and explain the reasons why they study it. And several more strategies. I think that we need to offer more than now short, intensive courses of Ukrainian just to attract potential students, to make them interested. Some students, or maybe non-typical students, like professionals, experts, adults, people of pension age, retired people, including free of charge. We had such practice at Kansas University, where we offered free courses for the community at the local library. And there were lots of people interested in that. Almost 20 people per semester were listening to these courses once per week. And then we can see those people at all of our events connected with Ukraine. Their interest is increasing. And also my colleagues have already mentioned that we cannot teach Ukrainian language just as a language. It's important to infuse language courses with the rich cultural and political context, because this is what interests our students. There are very nice examples, and I'm happy that my colleagues already listed several examples of the courses which they teach, where they unite language and politics. And of course, we, the teachers of Ukrainian language, need to actively cooperate as a community to solve different issues, including the development and dissemination of innovative resources for learning Ukrainian, on the improvement of teaching methods. And here I'd like to recommend you, if you are not the members of our International Association of Ukrainian Teachers, we invite you, please. Our president, Ms. Sophia Asher, gave a kind of a link in the chat, which you could use to join us on Facebook. In English, it's International Association of Teachers of Ukrainian. That's a brand new association. We have really ambitious plans. We invite you to join us. Almost all of our events are virtual, online, so you can join us from any corner of the world. And together, I hope, as a community of teachers, we'll be able to go on helping each other, teaching Ukrainian better, and also share strategies of popularization of learning of Ukrainian language in the world. Thank you. Thank you, Lesa. And before I give the floor to our last speaker, Lesa Lazarenko, let me say a couple of my comments, which I wanted to add. I will write them in the chat. And I think we will not have questions, but still, we can always answer them and discuss different issues at our Facebook page. Olesa Lazarenko, please. Yes, thank you. I will try to be as short as possible. I'd like to express my own ideas. Let me share my screen. I've noted down that quickly. I share the opinions of all of our esteemed speakers and my colleagues, as it would be really hard to add anything new, especially from the perspective of methodology. So let me focus on how it can be improved at the level of our university, at the level of our language center. So let me just make it full screen. I do apologize, it does not work. I've lost it. Sorry for that. Okay, then. Let me list the following points. First of all, that should be cooperation between the teachers of Ukrainian language as foreign language, with an objective that these teachers could come to us and read lectures to our students who are studying Ukrainian. That is really important, because as we have so with our lecturers theater existing for such a long time, we didn't have such examples. In Humboldt, we had Antoniv, who had lectures among our students. So I hope that we have a wonderful example how it can be done. Another point, which was also mentioned by Antoniv, is the development of such discipline as Ukrainian language as the hereditary one, or if now we have foreign, well, not foreign students, but they are studying Ukrainian language as foreign language, soon will be joined by the students of Ukrainian origin. And of course, we should be ready to offer them such courses, methodologically developed. But such a bridge could be a course or several courses connected with the teaching of Ukrainian as native language for Ukrainian students, but with some profile sphere, like it could be business language for the economists, or scientific or academic language, or peculiarities of scientific style for those who are studying the history of Eastern and Central Europe. The last point, which I already noted down, but I lost it somewhere, is that in Frankfurt-am-Oder, we have a very big Ukrainian community. After the sadly known events of the 24th of February, that is 1,000 of people, 1,000 of people who have really active cultural life. And we had an idea with the employees of the Viadrina that we should invite Ukrainians to the meetings with the students who are studying Ukrainian language. We could, in fact, achieve two goals at once. Ukrainians could improve their German, and the students could get to know more about the Ukrainian language. So I guess that's it. I'm sorry that it was a bit of a local level conclusions, but still, my colleagues before me have mentioned all of that already, and I totally support their offers. Thank you. Thank you so much, Olesya. Thank you all of the speakers and reporters. I had some expectations to have 30 to 40 minutes of the discussion, but it turns out that many people had lots of information which they wanted to share. And it witnesses and tells us, and I've already noted down some of the ideas for our future webinars or seminars, which we need to organize through our association. And as my colleague Oleksandra Wallo has already said, we invite you, please come to us, offer new topics, we are ready to organize them. Because really, we have lots of topics to discuss. Well, we still have 7 minutes left. Are there any questions? Maybe the speakers have any questions to each other. Let's start with that first. If I may, I would like to ask the following. Yulia Tepko, could you tell a couple of words about the integrated course of Ukrainian language and culture? How did you integrate language and culture for your audience? Thank you. Thank you. In fact, integration of language and culture is easy because the culture is the main factor for the language. To get to know the culture, the Japanese people study the language. And first and foremost, we need to speak about the Japanese context, because the Japanese totally don't understand Ukraine, don't recognize Ukraine, what triggers Ukrainian culture, and how it is different from Russian. And here, what we can see maybe in the Western countries already, motanka puppets or vyshivanka embroidery, it only starts in Japan, and it only begins to be exciting for the Japanese. So when I try to explain them certain cultural peculiarities, I'm trying to do that with simple grammatic constructions, what that is. And in fact, Ihor mentioned, we do not have any textbook which would integrate this cultural factor. So we need to think which exactly cultural elements should be included into this Japanese textbook. Because today in Japan, when we were speaking about grammar, it often uses the examples of the 19th or 20th centuries about some dining rooms or coupons, which we don't use anymore. But we should speak about the aspects of Ukrainian culture, which they get to know about, what they really like. And what's also important is the context, and I had such an idea before. Everybody is telling how to involve a certain community for the studies of Ukrainian language. So what I was impressed with, no one said that the image of Ukraine as the country at war really makes me anxious. Because in Japan, first, Ukraine was really an exciting factor, and everybody was excited by Ukraine's courage, but Japan has pacifism. And we should involve people to study Ukrainian not only through the war, because in Japan the war has become the main trigger. This is my objective, to involve, to attract through cultural aspects. And of course, we cannot skip the topic of war, but we need to explain some of the points like that. Thank you. Thank you. Olesa Lazarenko, please. Thank you. And I'd like to underline one more point, which is also important for Europe, in fact, because very often the people, when I ask them, why did you come to study the language? What's your interest? They emphasize that Ukraine will soon become the EU member, and they would like to be ready to define that when Ukrainian language is the language of the EU language, they would be like to ready to speak it, to know it. Yes, that's very interesting to see different contexts, which factors are now top priorities. And it seems to me our today's dialogue, our conversation underlined and emphasized these points. Thank you. I guess we have time for one more question and one answer. Or a comment, maybe. Have you got any comments, Andrii, please? I have one question. You listed lots of issues, and the second task, the second part of that was the main problems and and solutions. So there were. I'm interested whether there are any problems which we could solve. Sarah, could you please turn off the mic of Janusz Panchenko?
Не может быть реализован вообще тем временем проблемы с аналогичным проектом, но для цыганских детей помладше в России, поскольку сейчас...
Janusz, выключи микрофон. Janusz, выключи микрофон.
Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to find it. Okay.
Андрій, будь ласка.
Andrii, please. Well, in fact, that was the question from me. How do the colleagues see the issue of language community, how you can delve deeper into the community? I can name you the example, Andrii. Last year, our university organized, we had our language program and course in Lviv University. Last summer, we organized that in Warsaw. and it was done through the Ukrainian culture representation in Warsaw. I can tell more about that, but it's one of the example, the immersion into that. I know my colleagues know about other examples, online experience. Maybe anybody else has any other comments about that? I do apologize. Do you hear me? Yes, Ksenia.
Константиненко, дуже вдячна за запрошення до цієї дискусії. Я нічого не готувала, оскільки я тільки почала зараз викладати українську мову та
I
культуру.
didn't prepare anything as I've just started training and I prepared an experimental course. I will learn about the results upon the end. I'm just monitoring that because I teach the history of literature and I do have only several hours for doing that. And I need to, offer a lot within the limited hours, particularly when we're talking about literature, Baroque or avant-garde. In this context, are pretty interrelated. And I can see that the students are pretty interested in learning this because it helps with the immersion into the culture, into the language. Well, we'll see how it goes, and hopefully it will have an impact, will have a result. And I also wanted to ask a question. Maybe we can be mentioning that on Facebook. Maybe anyone has the challenges with the culture of diplomacy. I mean, with Russian components, is there any pressure from Russian side on studying the Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian language? Because in Italy, there's an issue with that, because, well, it's a peculiar country, and I would like to learn the experience of colleagues in other countries. So thank you. I think, Sana, I don't think we have the time for that, and I can see that Svetlana is pointing that we should be finishing this, but well, that could be kind of discussed on Facebook, or we could have this as a point of discussion on the next conference. So thank you for responding. Thank you for joining us from different parts of the world, and I thank to our colleagues from Japan. Thank you for joining us so late. So it was wonderful to see all of you. Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful moderation. Dear colleagues, big thanks to everyone joining such a very important discussion. And today's roundtable is a very important continuation of the roundtable we've had on Thursday. So big thanks to all the speakers for their profound comments and thoughts. And we shall definitely continue with our conversation, with our discussions. Once again, please join the International Association of Teachers of Ukrainian Language as a Foreign Language. I would like to underline that this association has been established at the initiative of our great colleague of ours here in the University of Indiana, Sophia Usher. So, dear colleagues, thank you for such an interesting and truly important roundtable. And I think I would need to stop the recording now and